I still remember that morning like it was yesterday. The coffee was warm. The air outside had that calm before the storm. And everything in me believed it was going to be a great day. I'd stayed up half the night finishing my presentation, rehearsing every line until it felt perfect. I was confident, maybe even proud. Walking into the office, I smiled at the security guard, greeted my teammates, and thought, this is the day they'll finally see my worth. If only I knew that by evening, I'd be standing outside the same building with my career in ruins. For 5 years, I had given everything to Linton Dynamics, a mid-sized marketing agency that pretended to value creativity, but secretly ran on politics and favoritism. I wasn't the loudest voice in the meetings, nor was I one of those people who spent half their day complimenting the boss. I was the worker, the one who actually delivered results, built client trust, and held the team together when projects went south. People respected me for that, or so I thought. But I learned that in corporate life, respect doesn't always translate to loyalty. That day started like any other. My colleagues were buried in their screens. Clara gave me a small smile that felt more forced than friendly, and Derek, my boss, walked past me with his usual air of superiority. I didn't pay attention. I was focused on my presentation for Falcon Tech, the biggest client we'd landed in years. I'd built the campaign from scratch, designed every slide, and even corrected the mistakes Derek made in his last pitch. I thought he'd appreciate that. Instead, he was about to destroy me for it. Around 11, I got a message from HR. Derek would like to see you in his office. I remember reading it twice, wondering if I'd misread it. It wasn't common for Derek to call me in personally, unless something major had happened. I assumed he wanted to review my Falcon Tech presentation, or maybe discuss a new client lead. I even smiled as I grabbed my notebook. I had no idea I was walking into a trap. When I entered his office, something felt wrong instantly. Derek sat behind his desk, leaning back like a king ready to pass judgment. And sitting next to him was Clara, his assistant, and my so-called teammate. Her eyes avoided mine. Her tablet was open, and she looked far too nervous for this to be just a routine meeting. I felt the first ripple of unease in my stomach. "Come in, Maya," Derek said with a practiced smile. "We need to discuss something important." His tone was calm, rehearsed, almost too smooth. I sat down slowly, still trying to convince myself it was nothing serious. But then he said it, the sentence that changed everything. "After reviewing recent performance reports, we've decided to let you go." My brain stopped working for a second. "Let me go," I repeated, half laughing. "You're joking, right? My performance reports have been flawless." Derek didn't flinch. He just slid a file across the desk toward me. Inside were printed pages, emails, reports, data sheets, all marked with supposed errors and delays. My name was stamped on every one of them, but they weren't mine. The numbers were wrong, the dates didn't match, and the edits, those were Clara's. I knew because I had seen her working on those same files late at night, offering to help me finish them faster. It all clicked in an instant. She had been copying my reports, altering them slightly, and feeding the altered versions back into the system to make me look incompetent. I looked at Derek, my voice trembling. "These are fake. Someone tampered with them. Please, let me show you the originals." He sighed, as if I were a child making excuses. "We've already reviewed everything. The decision has been made." His words hit like a hammer. I turned to Clara, hoping she'd at least meet my eyes, but she kept staring at her tablet, pretending to type something important. That silence confirmed everything. She was in on it. "Derek, please." I tried again, my voice cracking. "You know my work better than this. Check the campaign metrics. Falcon Tech just renewed because of me." He leaned forward, his tone turning sharp. "Maya, this conversation is over. HR will handle your exit." That was it. 5 years reduced to a few cold sentences. My hands went numb. I wanted to shout, to demand proof, to call him out for being manipulated, but I knew it wouldn't matter. The decision wasn't about performance. It was about politics. I stood up slowly, trying to keep my dignity intact. Derek avoided eye contact, and Clara finally gave me a small fake smile. It wasn't even regret. It was victory. I walked out of that office in silence. Every step felt heavier than the last. As I passed through the open workspace, people stopped typing. Some pretended not to notice. Others whispered. A few co-workers gave me that pitying look that said, "I'm glad it's not me." The humiliation was unbearable. I grabbed my things, forcing my shaking hands to stay steady as I packed my desk. And then I saw Clara again. She was standing by the copier, whispering to another colleague, pretending she didn't see me. But I caught her reflection in the glass partition. Her lips curled into a smug little smirk. That moment burned into my memory. That smirk told me this had been planned. That smirk was the spark that turned my heartbreak into fury. I took a deep breath, walked past her without a word, and headed for the elevator. As the doors closed, I caught my own reflection, tired eyes, pale face, but a strange calm underneath. Outside, the world carried on as if nothing had happened. The city roared with traffic. People hurried down the sidewalks. The sun kept shining. But inside me, something had changed forever. They thought they had buried me. They thought they could erase me with a few fake reports and a signature from HR. But as I stood outside that glass building, holding the file of lies they used against me, I realized something powerful. They hadn't buried me at all. They had planted me. And what they didn't know was that I was about to grow back stronger, sharper, and unstoppable. I whispered to myself, "You think you buried me, but you just planted the wrong seed." And right then, I made a silent promise. I would rise again, and when I did, they would remember the day they tried to destroy me. Because that was the day everything fell apart. For them, not for me. The days after losing my job blurred together like a storm I couldn't escape. I would wake up with a hollow ache in my chest, the kind that made it hard to breathe. I'd make coffee, open my laptop, and stare at the blinking cursor, wondering what to do next. Every corner of my apartment reminded me of what I'd lost. The framed certificates on the wall, the unopened files from old campaigns, even the work bag sitting by the door, like it was waiting for me to leave for a job that didn't exist anymore. The silence felt louder than the chaos I used to deal with at the office. I tried to stay strong, but the humiliation clung to me. Whenever I scrolled through LinkedIn, there he was, Derek, posting pictures of his new project wins and fake motivational quotes about teamwork. It made my stomach twist. He looked proud, confident, as if ruining my career had given him extra fuel to shine. And then there was Clara. Seeing her name pop up as the new marketing lead was like being punched in the gut. My role, my position, my hard work. She was sitting at my desk now, probably taking credit for every idea I had ever pitched. I told myself not to look, not to feed the anger, but it was impossible. I was watching my old life play out in front of me, without me. Every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it would be a job offer. Instead, it was another polite rejection email, thanking me for my time but moving forward with other candidates. The words blurred together after a while. "We appreciate your interest, but..." After careful consideration, unfortunately, it felt like the world was closing its doors one by one, and I was locked outside with no key. Weeks passed. I pushed myself to apply everywhere I could. Marketing agencies, startups, even companies completely outside my field. I told myself I'd take anything, but something wasn't right. The pattern was too familiar. Everyone seemed interested at first. Then, suddenly their tone changed. They'd go cold. Calls stopped coming. I'd walk out of interviews feeling hopeful, only to get the same rejection a few days later. Then one evening, my phone rang. It was Lena, a recruiter I'd worked with before. She hesitated before speaking. "Maya," she said softly, "this is off the record, okay? I just want you to know, someone's been giving bad references about you. I can't say who, but your old company's name keeps coming up." Her words hit me like ice water. For a moment, I couldn't speak. "Bad references?" I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. "Yeah," she said. "Something about your performance, integrity, things that don't match what I know about you. I thought you should be aware." After we hung up, I sat frozen, my phone still pressed to my ear. Derek. It had to be him. He wasn't satisfied with firing me. He wanted to erase me, to make sure no one would ever hire me again. That night, sleep was impossible. I lay in bed, replaying everything in my mind. Every meeting, every small moment that now felt suspicious. The way Clara used to hover around my desk, asking to borrow my reports. The way Derek suddenly became distant, weeks before the firing. It all connected now, piece by piece, like a puzzle I didn't realize I'd been assembling. They hadn't just let me go. They had orchestrated it. Anger burned through me, but beneath it, something else began to grow. Determination. Betrayal has a strange way of reshaping people. It either crushes you or forces you to rebuild into someone unrecognizable. And I wasn't about to be their victim anymore. I decided to start from scratch. No fancy office, no team, no safety net, just me and my laptop. I set up a simple freelance profile online, offering small marketing consultations. My first client paid me $50 to review their website strategy. $50. After years of earning thousands. But when that payment came through, I smiled. It wasn't about the money. It was proof that I could still build something of my own. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, I started getting more clients. Some were small businesses. Others were startups desperate for affordable marketing help. I worked late into the night, pouring my frustration into every project. Each campaign I built reminded me of what I was capable of, and what Derek and Clara had thrown away. Then one evening, as I reviewed one of my old campaign files for inspiration, something clicked. A spark. An idea so wild it made me sit up straight. If they had used my work to destroy me, what if I used that same talent, the very thing they underestimated, to expose them, to hit them where it hurt most, their reputation? My mind raced with possibilities. I knew their clients, their weaknesses, their tricks. I knew how their campaigns were structured, how Derek loved cutting corners, how Clara relied on stolen ideas. I could see exactly how to turn their strengths against them. Quietly, cleverly, and completely. For the first time in weeks, I felt alive again. My pain had transformed into purpose. They thought they had buried me, but they didn't realize. I was already learning how to grow through the dirt they threw on me. And this time, I wasn't just going to survive. I was going to make sure they'd remember the day they decided to cross me. I knew the machinery of Linton Dynamics better than anyone. How their campaigns ran. How the numbers were dressed up for boardrooms. How Derek loved to brag about creative risk, when all he did was recycle the same pitch under new buzzwords. I'd spent 5 years helping that place function, while the loudest people took the credit. I knew which clients were loyal, which ones were secretly unhappy, and which ones had been promised miracles that would never happen. Every deal, every crack in the system, every whispered shortcut. It was all burned into my memory. But revenge couldn't just be about payback. I didn't want to become the bitter ex-employee, trashing her old boss. My revenge had to be cleaner, smarter. Something they'd never see coming until it was too late. I started with a notebook. Every night, after finishing freelance projects, I'd write plans like blueprints, not of destruction, but of competition. If they built Linton on illusion, I told myself, I'll build something real. That idea became a kind of obsession. I didn't want to hack them, or leak secrets, or do anything illegal. I wanted to beat them at the one game they thought they owned, marketing. So I laid out my strategy step by step. Step 1. Create a new identity. I came up with a name that sounded bold yet fresh. Nova Vine Media. It felt alive, something that grew quietly but spread fast. I registered the domain, built a sleek website, designed a minimal logo, and wrote a tagline that felt like a quiet jab at Linton's hollow philosophy. Where stories grow, not just sell. It was subtle, but I knew anyone from the old office who stumbled upon it would feel the sting. Step 2. Target the same clients Derek and Clara had been chasing. I knew their lists, their pitches, their timelines, because I had built them once. But instead of lying to steal clients, I decided to win them with what Linton couldn't offer: empathy. I would listen, really listen, to what those businesses needed. No glitter, no showmanship. Just solid work and results they could measure. And step 3, deliver. Every campaign, every idea, every email had to scream quality. I poured myself into it completely. There were nights I didn't sleep at all, surviving on caffeine and adrenaline. But every ounce of exhaustion felt like fuel. My anger wasn't making me reckless. It was making me meticulous. At first, nothing happened. I got a few small projects. A bakery that needed rebranding. A fitness startup trying to launch its first online campaign. The payments were tiny compared to my old salary, but I treated each project like it was $1 million deal. I stayed up rewriting taglines, testing visuals, tweaking ad copy until it was perfect. Slowly, those clients began referring me to others. And with every new recommendation, Nova Vine started to breathe. A few months in, I began to notice changes online. Linton's posts were desperate. Their engagement numbers dropped. They started reposting old campaigns as new launches. I could almost sense Derek pacing in his office, wondering what was happening. Then one night, as I scrolled through an industry forum, I found something that made me stop cold. Someone had shared an anonymous snippet from a conference call. Derek's voice was unmistakable, sharp, arrogant, frustrated. "We lost the Falcon Tech deal again," he said. "Some new agency, Nova Vine, I think. Who even are they?" I read it 3 times, each word settling into my chest like fire. He didn't know it was me. That was the best part. I had struck my first real blow, and he couldn't even see where it came from. From then on, I became even more careful. I used encrypted emails, never posted personal updates, and kept Nova Vine's story vague. Behind that name, I built quietly while Linton began to stumble. Their clients started slipping away, not because of rumors or scandals, but because they were tired of being overpromised and underdelivered. I didn't need to expose Derek or Clara. Their arrogance was exposing them for me. And then came the message from Clara herself. She sent an email to Nova Vine's official account, pretending to be a potential collaborator. Her tone was polished, professional, but I recognized it instantly. The same clipped phrasing she used when she was nervous. I laughed when I read it. So this was her plan: to figure out who was stealing their clients, to partner just long enough to steal ideas again. I decided to play along. I set up a meeting and disguised my voice with a modulator. I created an avatar that looked nothing like me. Short hair, glasses, a soft digital filter that made it impossible to tell who I was. When the call began, she smiled like a hunter who thought she cornered her prey. "We're looking for collaboration opportunities," she said smoothly. "We admire Nova Vine's work. Maybe we can exchange insights." I could have exposed myself then and there, told her who she was really talking to, but that would have ended the game too early. So I smiled through the screen and said, "Of course, but we only collaborate with firms known for ethical management and originality. Her expression faltered. Just for a second, but I caught it. The flicker of guilt, the recognition in her eyes. She tried to hide it behind another fake smile, but I saw the panic. She knew I was throwing her words back at her, even if she didn't know who was behind the voice. When the meeting ended, I sat there staring at the blank screen, my reflection barely visible. I felt no guilt, no hesitation. I was done being their victim. My revenge wasn't about destruction, it was about truth. And the truth was, they had built their success on deception. And now they were choking on it. Every contract Nova Vine signed, every client we earned, was another crack in their empire. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to fight dirty. I just had to keep doing good work and watch as the company that betrayed me slowly unraveled under the weight of its own lies. For the first time since that awful morning, I felt in control again. The world that had collapsed around me was starting to rebuild, brick by brick, under my terms. And this time, I wasn't working for them. I was working for justice. Revenge, I realized, was hollow if the truth stayed buried. It wasn't enough that Linton Dynamics was losing clients, or that Derek and Clara were squirming under the pressure. I wanted justice. I wanted the world to see the lies that had destroyed me, not out of spite, but because I knew how many others they'd stepped on to climb their way up. I couldn't let their corruption stay hidden behind polished smiles and flashy presentations. It was time to expose what they really were. I started quietly, methodically, like I was building a campaign again. But this time, the campaign was about truth. I dug into my old archives, revisiting folders I hadn't touched since the day they fired me. Linton had forgotten to revoke my access to several shared drives and cloud databases. A careless oversight on their part. Inside those digital vaults were pieces of my past. Old reports, campaign drafts, client updates. Some of them had my name still listed in the metadata. And then, tucked between spreadsheets and presentations, I found what I was looking for, the manipulated files they used to frame me. Each document told a story, reports with my initials, but Clara's fingerprints all over the formatting. Campaign results that had been altered to make successful projects look like failures. Emails between Derek and Clara, where they discussed adjusting figures before presenting them to clients. Reading them made my stomach churn, but I kept going. I took screenshots, downloaded copies, and organized everything by date and project name. I wasn't just collecting revenge material. I was gathering evidence. At first, I hesitated. There was a part of me that wanted to just move on, to let karma handle it. But then I remembered how Derek looked at me the day he fired me. Calm, confident, like he was proud of himself for being clever. And Clara, standing there with her fake sympathy, while she watched me fall apart. No, they didn't deserve to walk away clean. So I began assembling the story. Not a rant or an angry post. Something precise, factual, and professional. I wrote it like a case study. The title came naturally. The Cost of Corruption, When Ambition Destroys Integrity. It was the kind of title that would catch the attention of anyone in the industry. And yet, it didn't sound personal. Inside, I laid out everything. The data manipulation, the false reports, the internal politics that had driven the company's downfall. I didn't name Derek or Clara directly, but anyone who knew the industry would recognize Linton Dynamics from the timelines, the campaigns, and the phrasing. When I finished, I read it 3 times to make sure it was watertight. No emotion, no insults, just facts. It was devastating because it was honest. I converted it into a clean, anonymous PDF and uploaded it to a respected professional marketing forum where executives, analysts, and consultants discussed trends and shared insights. Then, without thinking twice, I hit publish. The moment I did, my heart raced. For a few hours, nothing happened. The post sat there quietly, gathering a handful of views. But by morning, everything changed. Notifications exploded. My phone buzzed non-stop. Comments poured in from industry insiders who had clearly connected the dots. Some were cautious, asking if it was true. Others came in swinging, accusing Linton Dynamics of being the company described. Within hours, screenshots from the case study spread across LinkedIn and Twitter. The post had gone viral in the marketing world. People started comparing the timelines in the document to Linton's actual campaigns. They matched perfectly. Someone even pulled up old social media posts from Derek's account and laid them next to the data in my report. The resemblance was undeniable. The whispers became a storm. Is this about Linton Dynamics? Did they fake results to impress investors? Weren't they just bragging about a new client deal last week? By afternoon, the company's name was trending for all the wrong reasons. Clients began posting cryptic messages about ethical reevaluations. Employees went silent online. And then came the official response, a vague statement from Linton's HR department, announcing an internal integrity review. That was corporate language for panic. I sat at my desk, watching the chaos unfold, feeling the weight of 5 years slowly lift from my shoulders. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just breathed. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about balance, about truth finally catching up to arrogance. 3 days later, I got an email. The sender's name froze me for a moment. Derek. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. His message was short and desperate. Maya, if this is your doing, please, we can talk. You've made your point. Let's fix this before it gets worse. Fix this. The words made me laugh bitterly. He still thought this was a mess that could be cleaned up with a few meetings, a few apologies, maybe a payout. He didn't understand that the truth wasn't something you could fix. You either faced it or got buried by it. I typed a response, then deleted it. What could I possibly say to him? That I forgave him? That I wanted to hear his excuses? No, silence would hurt more. I closed the email, marked it as read, and moved on. Some conversations didn't deserve to happen. Over the next week, I watched Linton Dynamics unravel in real time. Their top clients withdrew contracts. Clara deleted her LinkedIn account. Derek stopped posting motivational quotes about leadership. Reports surfaced about employees leaving in waves. And through it all, I stayed invisible. For the first time, I didn't feel powerless. I didn't need recognition. I didn't even need credit. The truth was enough. I had taken back control, not by shouting or destroying, but by simply revealing what was always there. The irony was perfect. The same data they used to ruin me had become the evidence that ruined them. As I shut my laptop that night, the city outside my window felt quieter, calmer. I knew this wasn't the end yet, but it was the turning point. Justice wasn't loud, it was patient. And now, finally the truth had found its voice. By the time their empire began to crumble, Nova Vine had already risen into something unstoppable. What began as a desperate spark of revenge had evolved into a thriving, respected agency that people in the industry were talking about. Every sleepless night, every tear, every ounce of anger I once carried had transformed into fuel for creativity. The clients who once doubted me now trusted me blindly. It was surreal to watch the same doors that once slammed in my face now swing open with invitations and applause. But beneath that success, there was a quiet satisfaction that words couldn't describe. I had taken the very pain they gave me and built something beautiful out of it. One morning, as I went through my usual list of client emails, I saw a message that made me freeze. It was from Falcon Tech, the same company that Derek and Clara had once stolen from me, the same deal that had triggered everything. Their message was straightforward and professional, but I could sense the respect woven between the lines. They wanted to collaborate with Nova Vine for a long-term partnership. I reread that email several times, feeling my heartbeat in my ears. The poetic irony wasn't lost on me. The company that symbolized my downfall was now reaching out to me for help, and they didn't even know it. When I met with the Falcon Tech team, I was composed, professional, and precise. Every detail of the presentation was sharp, every strategy perfectly aligned with their needs. I didn't mention the past. I didn't need to. As I spoke about vision, trust, and long-term value, I could see in their eyes that they recognized something genuine, something they probably hadn't seen from Linton Dynamics in a long time. When they shook my hand and signed the deal, I felt something inside me shift. This wasn't just a win. It was closure, disguised as success. Weeks passed, and Nova Vine's name started circulating everywhere. Clients loved our approach, our transparency, and the results we delivered. It felt like the universe was finally balancing the scales. But the real turning point came unexpectedly. One afternoon, I received an email from a journalist named Lila Porter. She introduced herself as a business features writer for a well-known publication that highlighted innovative and ethical startups. She wanted to feature Nova Vine as an example of modern integrity in marketing. At first, I hesitated. Attention was dangerous. The higher the spotlight, the greater the chance that someone might dig too deep into who I really was. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't need to hide anymore. My success wasn't built on deceit. It was built on truth, hard work, and resilience. The world didn't need to know my scars to understand my strength. They just needed to see what I had created from them. So, I agreed to the interview. When the video call began, Lila greeted me with a kind smile. Her tone was warm but sharp, the kind of curiosity that cuts through surface-level answers. She asked about my company, about my leadership style, and what inspired Nova Vine's rise. I spoke from the heart, not from a script. I talked about integrity, about learning to lead through loss, and about building something meaningful when the world tries to take everything away. But it was her final question that caught me off guard. "What would you say?" she asked, leaning slightly closer to the camera. "Is the most important lesson you've learned through all your challenges?" For a moment, I went silent. In that pause, every memory came rushing back. Derek's cold stare, Clara's fake smile, the weight of the cardboard box I carried out of Linton Dynamics, and the countless nights of doubt that followed. And then, with steady calm, I said the words that had been living quietly inside me for years. In business, loyalty is priceless. Betrayal might win short-term power, but it always destroys the foundation it stands on. Lila smiled, nodding. She thanked me, and we ended the call. I didn't think much of it afterward, but when the article went live, the world noticed. My quote spread like wildfire across LinkedIn, Twitter, and industry blogs. People reposted it, quoted it, and tagged it under discussions about ethics and leadership. It became a rallying cry for honesty in business. But the part that no one knew was that those words weren't just a statement. They were the final blow. Within a week, whispers started circulating about Linton Dynamics. Clients began sharing old experiences, questioning their ethics, and comparing them unfavorably to Nova Vine. The timing couldn't have been worse for them. Their reputation was already hanging by a thread. The viral quote became the spark that ignited their downfall. 3 departments shut down in quick succession. Derek resigned quietly, citing personal reasons, though everyone knew the truth. Clara, who once boasted about her rise, vanished completely from the industry. Her LinkedIn deactivated, her connections gone. Watching it unfold didn't bring me joy in the way I once imagined it would. It brought me peace. The kind of peace that doesn't shout or dance, but simply exhales. One evening, as I closed my laptop, I stared at the Nova Vine logo glowing softly on the screen. I realized my revenge had transformed into something bigger. Justice, redemption, and growth. I didn't need to expose myself or reveal my identity to Derek or Clara. The world had already judged them, and life had handed me everything I had lost, and more. That night, for the first time in years, I slept soundly. The ghosts of betrayal no longer haunted me. I had built something pure out of something rotten. I had turned my pain into progress, my humiliation into legacy, and as I drifted to sleep, one thought lingered in my mind. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't payback, it's peace. Looking back now, I realize that everything that once felt like the end was actually the beginning of something greater. The pain, the humiliation, the sleepless nights, they weren't meant to destroy me. They were meant to shape me. I don't regret a single thing that happened. If anything, I'm grateful for it. Because without their betrayal, I would have never discovered my own strength. I would have kept believing that loyalty alone was enough to survive in a world that rewards deception. But the truth is, sometimes you need to lose everything to learn how to build something real. They fired me unfairly. They lied. They tried to erase every part of what I'd built. For a while, it worked. I remember the first few days after losing my job, how heavy the silence felt, how useless I thought I'd become. I had spent years proving myself, staying late, covering for others, believing that hard work always gets recognized. But reality doesn't always reward effort. Sometimes it rewards manipulation. Derek and Clara were masters of that. They thought they had ended me, that they'd pushed me out for good. But what they didn't realize was that in cutting me off, they set me free. It took time for me to understand that. In the beginning, I was consumed by anger. Every night, I replayed their words, their smirks, their betrayal. But slowly, anger turned into clarity. I stopped asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and started asking, "What can I do with it?" That single shift in mindset changed everything. They shut one door, yes, but in doing so, they forced me to build an entirely new house. And in that house, I made the rules. Nova Vine was born from that mindset. Not from revenge, but from reinvention. I wanted it to be a place where people like me, the quiet workers, the underdogs, the ones who give everything but get overlooked, could finally thrive. Today, my team is full of those very people. Dreamers, creators, and fighters who know the value of honesty in a world full of shortcuts. We don't believe in office politics. We believe in integrity. It's our most valuable asset, and it's the reason clients stay with us. When I see the pride in my team's eyes, I know that all the suffering was worth it. Sometimes, I still think about Derek and Clara, not with bitterness. Those emotions burned away long ago. Now I think of them as lessons. They taught me what kind of leader I never want to be. They showed me how ambition without ethics rots from the inside out. Their downfall wasn't something I celebrated. It was something I learned from. I realized that the universe doesn't need you to take revenge for every wrong done to you. It has a way of restoring balance on its own. You just have to be patient enough to let it unfold. When people ask me if I ever got justice, I tell them this: justice didn't come from watching their company crumble. It came from proving that I was never the weak one. They just underestimated me. They thought they could erase my name, but they only made me rewrite it in bigger, bolder letters. Every success Nova Vine achieves is a silent reminder that no one can destroy what's built on truth. Revenge gave me motivation, but purpose gave me peace. There's a difference between winning out of spite and winning out of growth. Spite fades. Growth lasts. I didn't want to be someone consumed by bitterness. I wanted to be someone who turned betrayal into a blueprint. And I did. I took their lies, their schemes, and their cruelty, and I turned it into fuel. I learned that the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's proving yourself right. Sometimes I walk through the Nova Vine office, late at night when everyone's gone. The lights are dim, the air quiet, and the logo on the wall glows faintly in the dark. I stop for a moment and stare at it. That logo isn't just a company symbol, it's my story. Every scar, every failure, every comeback carved into one name. I remember the girl who walked out of Linton Dynamics with her career in ruins and her dignity in pieces. And then I see the woman who built something from those ruins, something that stands taller than the people who tried to destroy her. And every time I look at that logo, I whisper the words that started it all. Words that once came from pain, but now echo with power and peace. You think you buried me, but you only planted me deeper. Because that's the truth. I didn't just survive. I grew. I rose. I became everything they said I couldn't be. And that will always be the greatest victory of all.